Hey guys, so today we're going to jump ahead to talk about how we understand atoms today. Okay, so up to this point we've been saying atoms, like even the name, it comes from something that's not able to be broken down further. So today we know that that's not true. Atoms, they're in fact, they're made up of other parts. And so these are the three components that make up atoms. So we have protons, neutrons, and electrons. Okay? And so each different, we call them particles. Okay, so each one of these particles, they have a different set of properties. Okay, so let's just start with protons. Okay, so protons, they carry a positive charge. Okay? And then our second one is neutrons. Okay, so neutrons, they don't have any charge. Okay? And then these two, they have about the same mass. Okay? What that means is they weigh about the same. They're about the same size. Okay, our final one is the electron. Okay, electrons, they are much smaller. So they're about 1/2000th the size of either of these guys. Okay, so electrons, they're much smaller and they carry a negative charge. Okay, and then this isn't super important, but protons and neutrons, they're also sometimes referred to as nucleons. Okay, and the reason why is because of their position inside the atom. Okay, so this is kind of what an atom looks like. In the very middle, you have what's called the nucleus. Okay, so here we have protons and neutrons. They're not actually colored, but in this picture they've drawn, let's just say the red one is a proton and the white one is a neutron. And then going around the nucleus, you have the electrons. So these little turquoise ones, those are supposed to be the electrons. Okay, so in this atom, it's a little hard to see, but let's say there's 3 protons, there's 3 red ones, and there's 4 neutrons, and there's 3 electrons. Okay. And then atoms, we give them names based off of how many protons they have. Okay, so let's go over to this page. So this first column, that's the number of protons. Okay, so if an atom has 1 proton, we call it hydrogen, and we give it the symbol H. If an atom has 2 protons, we call it helium, and it has the symbol He. 3 protons, lithium, and it has the symbol Li, and that just keeps going. Okay, and then there's, in this table, there's different columns. Okay, so once you finish this column, you go over to this one. If an atom has 32 protons, it's called germanium, and it has the symbol Ge. Okay, and that just keeps going. Okay. There's a couple different properties that atoms have. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is the mass number. Okay, so the mass number is, it's just the number of protons plus the number of neutrons. It's essentially the weight. Okay, so how much does this atom weigh? And so we say it weighs the number, it just weighs the nucleus, okay? So the nucleus is made up of protons and neutrons. Okay, so this one would have a mass number of 7 because we said it had 3 protons and 4 neutrons. The reason why, when we're calculating the mass of an atom, we don't count the electrons is because they're so small that it really doesn't make much of a difference. Okay, so when we say the mass number, it's just the number of protons and neutrons. Okay, and then there's one more. There's also what we call the atomic number. And then this one's really simple. It's just the number of protons. Okay, and then just a couple more things. Okay, so unless it's stated otherwise, an atom is neutral. Okay, so what that means is the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons. Okay, so neutral here is referring to the charge. So each proton has a +1 charge. Each electron has a -1 charge. If the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons, all the +1s cancel the -1s, and there's no overall charge. Okay, so for like in this atom, we have 3 protons and we also have 3 electrons. Okay, so this atom is neutral because all the plus charges cancel the minus charges. Okay, so it is possible for there to be more of one or the other. Okay, and so when that happens, the atom will have a charge. Okay, and so then we call it an ion. Okay, so let's say you have more protons than electrons. Because the protons are positively charged, then you'll have a positively charged ion. And this is commonly called a cation. Okay. And then the opposite can also happen. If you have more electrons than protons, it'll be negatively charged, and that's called an anion. Okay, And then last thing for this video, there's common shorthand. You'll see something that looks like this, okay? Here's some examples down here. Okay, so how do you read these symbols? The letter or the set of letters, that's the chemical symbol. That's the same letters we saw over here. Okay, so this one's the chemical symbol. The number to the lower left is the atomic number. Okay, so as we saw before, that's just the number of protons. And then the number to the top left is the mass number. That's just the number of protons plus the number of neutrons. And then sometimes you'll see a number right here. If there's a number here, that's the charge of the atom or the ion. If there's nothing there, that just means there's no charge. Okay, so let's just look at some examples. So here we have C13. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to identify how many protons, how many neutrons, and how many electrons. Okay, so the easiest part is to look at the atomic number. So that tells you the number of protons. Okay, so this atom has 6 protons. Okay, and then we know the mass number is 13. Okay, which is just the number of protons plus the number of neutrons. So if there are 6 protons, that means there must be 7 neutrons. Okay, and then we see there's no charge, which means the number of electrons is equal to the number of protons. Okay, so that means there must be 6 electrons. Okay, and then if you were really curious, you could go back to this table, go up to number 6, and you see, C, that's short for carbon. Okay, so this is a carbon atom. Okay, this one, so we have Mg, so that's magnesium. Okay, so it has 12 protons. 12 plus what is 25? The answer is 13. So it must have 13 neutrons. And then this one, it's an ion because it has a charge. Okay, so the charge is +2. So that means there must be 2 more protons than electrons. Because every proton has a +1 charge, and so there must be an extra 2 protons so that this ion has that charge. Okay, so if there are 12 protons, that means there must be 10 electrons. Okay. Now I just want to, it's almost the same thing, but we're just going to look at, this is your homework, okay? And for each section, I'm just going to do the first problem, so that if you forget how to do it, you can come and refer back to this video. Okay. So the first one here is boron 9. Okay, so B95. Okay. So all this question is asking you is just to identify the number of protons, the number of neutrons, and the number of electrons. Okay, so 5, that's the number of protons. Okay, so we just write down 5 protons. 9, that's the mass number. So that's the number of protons plus the number of neutrons. So there must be 4 neutrons because 5 plus 4 is 9. And then if there was a charge here, that'd tell you if there's a difference between the number of protons and the number of electrons. But here there's no charge, which tells us there's the same number of electrons as there are protons. So there must be 5 electrons. Okay, so that's the first atom for question 1. Okay, so what I want you to do is to go complete the rest of these, and then watch video number 2, and we'll talk about the next problems. Okay.